What kind of grade would you give to our public school system? What grade would you give to the education of the younger generation in this nation? A passing grade? An average grade? A failing grade? Now, before anybody gets upset, I want to mention that both of my parents, their careers were in the public school setting. My brothers as well. So, in the case of both of my parents, as well as my brother, I have heard them talk about the waste that has taken place for years within the school setting. And the idea seems to be if you throw enough money at anything or everything, you can actually solve problems. Doesn't it kind of take responsibility out of the picture? There are a lot of teachers, a majority of teachers in this nation that put their heart and soul into instilling within their students the principles of analysis and cognitive reasoning, the ability to digest information that'll be applicable in whatever area of life they choose to pursue. But there's a lot of waste that takes place. And to hear my parents and my brother, there are teachers that really are there just for a paycheck. They don't put in any extra time. They don't take extra time with their students. And that's a tragedy. In the Old Testament book of Hosea, the statement is made in chapter 4. There is no truth or mercy or knowledge of God in the land. It's the second half of verse 1. Verse 2, after dealing with specifics, the concluding statement is that these individuals, the nation of Israel, break all restraint with bloodshed upon bloodshed. So to begin with, the second half of verse number 1, they don't follow any kind of standard other than themselves. That actually creates a lawless culture. And an increase in violence is something that would be expected. You see it happening fairly recently in these United States. Verse number 3, therefore the land will mourn, and everyone who dwells there will waste away. A lack of safety, lack of concern, disregard for law, a lawlessness that's so pervasive that education has no part in it really at all. What's the end result? Verse number 6, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And God tells that nation back then, because you have rejected knowledge, I will reject you. Down to verse number 7, the more they increased, the more they sinned against me. A nation that became prosperous. But with that kind of prosperity, great power. And with that power, a disregard for anything, again, beyond themselves. Do you remember when you were back in school, there used to be a civics class where the basis of the principles for the government of this country were actually discussed, talked about, a lot of conversation? Those classes have gone away, almost to extinction. And what we have are individuals that actually are in positions of governance in our country that have no idea why they're there. And ultimately, those that are supposed to be representing a particular area of their state really are actually passing things from their own dictates. When's the last time you actually received something from somebody in a position of authority in state and federal government where they're asking for your opinion on a number of issues that are coming up for a vote, where they're giving you details? Power? Power is something that really kind of adds to this idea that I really don't have any kind of standard or need a standard other than me, myself, and I. And if you put me in a position of authority, I may not listen to you at all, just like the nation of Israel did with God. The very first verse of that chapter, Hosea chapter 4, hear the word of the Lord, you children of Israel, for the Lord brings a charge against the inhabitants of the land. They're lawless, They've forgotten any kind of principle beyond themselves, and they are destroying one another. It's not the mark of an intelligent civilization, then or now. It's interesting how history continues to repeat itself. Lessons that should have been learned long ago have been forgotten because people today have no knowledge, really, of what has taken place in centuries past. Interesting book. Frightening chapter, especially as it relates to situations that exist today. Please stay safe. We'll talk again soon.